What excuses have you heard when you were dumped? First date? Me. I don't want kids, ever. Had surgery to make sure I never would. Him. Okay. 2 years later, wedding plans underway. Him. So I want to have a couple kids within 5 years. Me. What? You know I had my tubes tied. Him. Yeah, I know, but I thought I could go impregnate my last fiancé. She doesn't want kids, but doesn't mind surrogating for us. Then you could raise them. Cool, huh? Me. Boggles for a full minute. What part of I went through a painful and expensive surgery to make sure I never have kids suggests to you that I actually want to raise kids, let alone yours by another woman? Him. You're ruining my dreams. I thought you'd change your mind if you really loved me. Picks up Chick and Jim the following week, phones me constantly to describe in explicit detail how amazing she is, marries her 6 months later. They punch out a couple of Rugrats and she makes him sell the vintage Camaro that he's literally spent the last decade rebuilding from the ground up, including using a metal lathe to build parts and get a minivan instead. I got tired of the phone calls and moved 1,000 miles away. Screw this crap. Story 2. My first wife and I always fought because I wasn't living up to my potential. Now some backstory. We met in high school, where I was a National Merit Scholar, a 4.0 student, and a number of honors classes and programs. The physics club, the math club, academic decathlon, etc. During my senior year, I secured a senatorial sponsorship to West Point Academy. I got her pregnant, which I freely admit was my dumb mistake our senior year. Had no intention of exploring any option other than having the baby, so I didn't go to college. Instead, I entered the working world as a husband and father at 19, working 2 jobs. Finnegan's line cook and newspaper delivery at night. Make ends meet while she did no work and continued to go to college while her parents watched our baby. This was the time when she was constantly down on me for failing to live up to my potential. As if any 19-year-old with no college education, a new baby, and paying someone else's college tuition is going to be doing awesomely at life. In the years since we've split up, I've managed to run a successful martial arts studio, be involved in several moderately successful local Celtic bands, make computer programming my career. I'm currently head of software development at a mid-sized company, publish a reasonably successful novel, maintain a website that helps about 2 million Celtic musicians a year, create my own line of tin whistles, which I sold successfully for a couple of years. Oh yeah, and earned 3 patents, which made me a ton of cash during the dot-com boom. In your face, witch. Story 3. It's funny how much people read into breakup explanations or excuses. I don't believe humans are very good at explaining behavior changes due to unconscious emotional impulses, such as falling in love with another person. They're so off the mark about the real reasons it's not even funny. They don't even know what's going on, so all explanations are irrelevant. In my world, I don't feel the same about you anymore. It is equivalent to, I think we're growing apart because you're fat and your finances are out of whack. The former explanation is truer, although less consoling. We feel better if we can pinpoint our mistakes. Women, my friends, will overlook every bad thing about you. Finances, looks, crappy car, being overweight, lack of education. If they truly are in love with you, don't ever hear an excuse. Don't focus on the words because they're just saying, I don't love you anymore. Story 4. This will probably be buried in older comments, but just hear me out. I got my computer science degree and was hired as a software engineer by a fairly large company right out of college. I make an income comparable to yours, and I get to travel overseas a few times a year for work. I'm 30 now, and I've been working here for 7 years. I made the mistake of letting my career determine where I was headed. I used my career as an excuse to forget my other life goals and dreams. You end up making a good salary, but you still live paycheck to paycheck because you buy into consumerism, rack up bills, and probably have a mortgage. If you're in a similar situation, then your ex was right. You are going nowhere. Why? Because you're already there. You've chosen your path as a career man, and that is what you have to look forward to for the next 30 years. While some people strive for this, a lot of us don't. Do I really find it enjoyable to spend my days in an office working for someone else? I saw where I was headed. When I looked into the future, I saw myself driving to the office every day. You know how damn depressing that is? Then I realized I actually have a choice. Sold my townhouse and saved up a bunch of money. This year I'm taking a break from the corporate world for a while to chase some dreams. I'm just saying it's quite possible this is what your ex meant when she said you were going nowhere. Story 5. I'm way too late to this thread, but I have 2 stories. You're cutting into my World of Warcraft raiding time. The dude was in university on loans, taking the bare minimum of courses. His landlords fed him dinner, his 1 meal a day. He had no job and no social life outside of me. I, on the other hand, was in an intensive full-time university program that demanded 12 to 14-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, a busy social life, and I still found time to see him. The other guy was thinking of taking a job in another province. We'd been together for 3 months. He asked my opinion, and I said, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Turns out this was the wrong answer. I asked him what the right answer would have been. Apparently, it would have been either, I'll move with you, or, but what about our relationship? This happened right after he'd borrowed $650 from me, which he never paid back. I later found out he'd been cheating on me with a girl who had the same extremely uncommon name as mine. Story 6. He broke up because he cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend. His reasoning was, I became too committed. I can't become committed to a woman at this point in my life. Maybe in the past, but not now. When I started to cry, he continued, "You're so young, you'll get over it. You'll have tons of other guys." So I retorted, "I have more years to have more guys, but it also means I'll have a longer time to remember what you did to me and what a freaking schmuck you really are." Made it seem like 25-year-olds don't have feelings as opposed to guys in their mid-30s. Like they have a love-life buoyancy that makes them unbreakable if you drop them hard. When I texted him later in seething hatred, he texted back, "I'll have a guy by midnight. Move on." I imagine he said this casually, like a police officer waving along traffic. I was so angry because he'd earlier broken up with me and then had courted me back. Why did he want me back? Because he was tired of chasing tail. I was angry at him for betraying me and angry at myself too for letting myself be fooled a second time. Story 7. A friend of mine was dating a good-looking Swedish girl for months before dumping her for dubious reasons. He had finally met her parents and discovered that her mother had flabby arms. He operated by the rule that the mother is the future image of the daughter. He said, "What's the point in continuing the relationship?" We all told him he was crazy. Perhaps the most bizarre part, he lived across the street from us and he broke up with her via a written letter. A letter that he mailed from across the street. She was confused and no one among us had the guts to tell her what happened. College years. Story 8. After I found out she was cheating, "You're too good and nice, I don't love you anymore. I fell in love with someone else." "So you want someone who treats you like crap?" "I want someone who can make me do things when I don't want to do them." We were married for less than 3 months. We had dated for 7 years. Not bad, man. Karma bit her in the butt, though. Story 9. Lisa. What do you say to a boy to let him know you're not interested? Marge Simpson.
"Well, honey, I..."
Homer.
"Let me handle this, Marge. I've heard them all. I like you as a friend. I think we should see other people. I speak no English."
Lisa.
"I get the idea."
Homer.
"I'm married to the sea. I don't want to end you, but I will."
Marge Simpson.
"Honey, Lisa, I tell this boy that you're very flattered, but you're just not ready for this kind of thing."
Lisa.
"Thanks, Mom."
Homer.
"If that doesn't work, 6 simple words. I'm not gay, but I'll learn."
Story 10. This was the summer of 2010, mid-June, to be exact. I woke up that morning to a call from my dad letting me know his uncle was in the hospital after attempting to end it all, and that his mom, my grandmother, was hospitalized for a panic attack after finding out what had happened to her brother. This was also the morning of a very close friend's wedding that I was a part of. My girlfriend and I at the time were invited, as I was in the ceremony, and she knew all of my friends and was cool with coming to hang out. So I had a lot on my plate to start with. After hearing the bad news, I called my then-girlfriend to try to talk about everything, in a rather hungover state due to the previous night of gentlemanly drinking. Right then and there, she told me that I was too emotionally needy, that I needed to be a man about things, and that she didn't want to be with me anymore. I hung up, called my friend and told him what was going on and that I might not be able to make it. We'd been together for 3 years and all of life had just piled up in 1 hour. He understood. After about 2 hours of being a sourpuss about everything, I decided to show up to my friend's wedding. A half hour into the ceremony, I wore cut-off shorts, a t-shirt with a blazer, high-top chucks, and sunglasses. I had a 6-pack of cheap beer in one hand and flowers for the bride in the other. I was seated, told that the open bar was opened early for me, proceeded to get messed up, sang karaoke, went to a bar, got in a fight, cried, went home, and lived life. It was one of the greatest days for me. My dad's uncle was fine. Grandma turned out okay. I was glad to be out of that relationship. Story 11. I was 19, a student, and had been dating this girl throughout literally my entire teens, and I ended up marrying her. She was just about a week over 18 at the time. She and I had returned from vacation with my mother and stepfather on a Sunday night, and proceeded to drink lightly. Later that night, after passing out at my mother's, I was awoken at 2 in the morning to my mother pulling me out of bed and leading me outside to the driveway, where she told me to sneak and look in the back seat of one of her vehicles. I witnessed my then 38-year-old stepfather having intimacy with my girlfriend. I attempted to bust the window with bare fists to get my hands on him. I wasn't very successful. At that time, I made a sprint to the garage where I kept my firearms. During this, and lucky for him, he had his keys on him and was able to get his truck started. As I came around to the driveway, he was just making a getaway through the yard and onto the road, both still nude. I did not fire my weapon at that moment. It had already made it away. Admittedly, I was completely out of my mind and was going to ruin the rest of my life that night if I was able to make it to him in time. I waited and paced around the street for them to return. Unbeknownst to me, my mother, of course, in a frantic state, phoned law enforcement 20 minutes or so after they left, exclaiming that this man was driving intoxicatedly and needed to be arrested. Yes, I'm aware of how stupid that sounds, and so is she. Anyway, after lurking for over 2 hours, I noticed a vehicle coming. I was fully stealth at this moment. I was ready to do what I still sometimes, in the deepest part of my mind, wish I could have done. Thankfully, the vehicle turned out to be a police officer's vehicle. I immediately set my pistol down and waited as he pulled up to my mother's house and walked to my front door before I slid quietly into the back of the house, out of sight. I wasn't about to leave my mother hanging, so I made my way through the house to the door with her. I had to explain that this was just blown out of proportion and that my mother had a panic attack and that I'm sorry about the wasted time of his. He said he drove around searching a small portion of the area and didn't see them anywhere. I again said sorry for the worry and that it was no problem. I explained I'd just comfort my mother and we would find somewhere to go for the night. After around 20 minutes of speaking with the officer, he started to make his way to his car and leave. Just at the time, they, ex and stepfather, pulled up. I immediately felt that same rush that I felt at first, but because of the variables, I remained calm. I walked inside so as to avoid saying anything to anyone at the time. I grabbed all my belongings, destroyed both of their phones, and tossed them in an obscure location so it would take them a while to discover and mess them up. I grabbed my mother and her important belongings and left the both of them there with the officer. Initiated sobriety tests as I was pulling away. I'm still not sure of the outcome of those tests and don't care, and that was the last time I saw the man who slept with his fiance's son's girlfriend. I took my mother home to where my apartment was and immediately grabbed every single one of my ex's belongings, walked them out to the dumpster, and threw them in. Poured some bleach on the clothes too. And hours later, still early morning, my ex decided to show up at my apartment, demanding I let her in. She came with one of her friends who I'd promptly told to screw off, and in a very loud tone, I pushed her out of my place and slammed the door in both of their faces. I told her through the door to go look in the dumpster for any of her crap. Felt good to say that. Felt good to hear her burst into cries. Stupid materialistic witch. That was the last time I saw her. That man's cowardice saved his life that night, and mine as well, in a messed up way. I didn't end up making the biggest mistake of my life. That situation still bears a small toll in my life when it comes to finding a relationship. It's been 4 years since then. I haven't been in a single relationship. I've gotten lucky every now and again. Yeah, sure. Doesn't really mean anything to me either way. Against everyone's beliefs, it never really hurt me like I imagined it should have. Yeah, I was seeing red that night, and yeah, my views on relationships are much different now, but I'm 100 times happier now than I could have ever been dating that girl. I made myself some money. I enjoy vacations and cruises often. I'm young and social. I think the reason I was able to get past any sort of depression is because I was raised in a somewhat proper family and never really experienced anything as crazy as that. My ex came from the epitome of a crappy family, and I somewhat suspect that she would turn out as crazy as them. So to me, this was like an episode of Jerry Springer, and I was basically thinking, screw this, I'm out. I guess it was just so trashy I failed to relate emotionally with it. Good for me, in my opinion. I'd say I couldn't be any happier right now in my life, aside from the fact that some of the women I've met become severely disappointed when I'm not all down for the lovey-dovey stuff. Other than that, I have truly good times. The reason I tell it is because I've never heard a reason why this happened, nor could I think of one myself. I just assumed it was bad luck. Story 12. I'm not sure if this technically fits, but it still sucked. I dated a girl for years, and we always talked about getting married, but she kept wanting to put it off. She would say, wait until I graduate, or wait until after grad school, for which I moved across the country with her. One day she told me she didn't love me anymore. When I asked her why we stayed together for so long and what could have possibly changed, she said, I haven't been in love with you for a long time. I was just too nice to say anything. What the heck? I realized in that moment how freaking dumb she was and didn't even bother fighting for her. Story 13. I went on a date with a girl who claimed she'd only been in lesbian relationships for the past 8 years, but identified as queer, so she was also attracted to men. The first day, we had a good time at dinner, talked about nerd stuff, had a few drinks, and went for a walk. We then headed back to her place, and she was all over me, almost to the point where I was uncomfortable. Good times were had, and I think she had a great time from everything I could tell. Sometime around 3 a.m., I ended up getting dressed and leaving. The next morning, I woke up at around 11, checked my email, and saw this. I think I'm not queer, that I'm a true lesbian. I thought I wanted to have intimacy with men again, but after last night I realized it has nothing to offer me. I just didn't feel anything. I'm sorry, goodbye. If that doesn't crush her ego, I don't know what will. As a quirky side note, I later found out she was one of the most prominent writers of Lord of the Rings gay fanfiction, in which most of her stories involve gay hobbits. This made a lot of sense, as there were 2 fairly decent amateur paintings of Elijah Wood as Frodo, shirtless in her living room. She explained them to me as kind of a hobby of hers at the time. I thought she meant painting. Story 14. I got dumped by my girlfriend in 10th grade because her parents said they could tell I wasn't going to amount to anything after I got out of high school. I remember the conversation and being completely confused as to why they would have such an assessment of a teen who was only a sophomore. Now they came to such conclusions since I'd only been dating her for a few months and had only met them a couple of times. As the years went on, I eventually graduated. Her parents came up to me and told me that they were very sorry that they ever said what they did. They said she really did care about me but didn't want to disappoint them, so she followed their suggestion. They then proceeded to attempt to reconcile the relationship. Now 2 years passed with no real attachment anymore, only to find out that I'd been dating someone for about a year, who was now my wife of 12 years. Dad wasn't interested. The dad turned to me and said, maybe we were right about you being nothing. I can remember being so happy and celebrating graduation and then this foul comment just shattering the mood, but I laughed it off and ignored them. Years later, I found out that she had moved in with some guy she met that summer and ended up pregnant, not once, but 3 times over the course of the next 3 years. She now lives next door to her parents with 5 kids in what looks like a Goodwill thrift store in her front yard. She also looked several hundred pounds from her last high school reunion and, from what I was told, was married a few times. I never got a chance to thank her parents for steering me away from that train wreck. Story 15. We had been together for 5 years when she moved cross-country to start med school while I finished my undergrad. A couple of weeks after graduation, while I was in the connecting airport on my way to see her and job hunt in her new city, she said, You're too much of a distraction. I'm afraid I'm going to fail out because of you. Translation: I want you to devote yourself to helping me cope with my issues, with no expectation of anything in return. Happy birthday to me. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 16. Gather round, boys and girls, for this is how I got dumped once. We were living together for around 3 years or so at this point. It was Easter Sunday. Him: I'm leaving you. Me: what? Why? Him: I've met somebody else and she's the one I was meant to be with. Me: oh, okay. Is it Jay? A female friend of his. She was awesome. Him: no, her name is Faria. Me: like the hair color? Him: angry face, grumble something. Me: wait, we're together almost all the time. Where did you meet her? Him: she lives with me. Me, confused, look around. Where? In the closet? Under the bed? For the record, I thought he was kidding at this point. Him: in my head. Me: in your head? Him: in the temple in my head. Me: in your head. For Christ's sake, you try and process this. Him: she's my soulmate. I'm sorry. Me: in your head. Him: yes. Me: you're cheating on me with a voice in your head? Him: she's in the temple in my head. Me: you're leaving me for a voice in your head. Him: me. Just kind of burst out laughing at this point. Him: prolonged usage of substances, kids. That's bad. Very bad. Last I talked to him, they had gotten married and had some brain babies, so I guess good for them. Story 17. I can't be with someone who walks like an 80-year-old. One cold February day, 4 years ago, I woke up and couldn't stand up. The whole point is that my spine decided to close in and start crushing my spinal cord. This left me in constant pain. A 9 or 10 on the 10-point scale. 24/7. I was taking 10 Vicodin a day and dealing with therapy when I got dumped, but I didn't dwell on it because I had bigger fish to fry. The pain scale of 6 became a new normal. Even when everything was A-okay, I was still at a 6. After a year, I dumped the substances. After 2, I met the woman who would become my wife. After 3.5 years, the pain went away as mysteriously as it came. The only lasting effects are that I can't feel my feet anymore. And when I can feel something down there, it's in the form of random pains. Story 18. Basically the same. Had an amazing relationship. We had mind-blowing intimacy, and I really enjoyed just being around her. We were together for almost 5 years because she started acting weird. We basically broke up because we are going down separate paths in life, but really came down to the fact that I'm not rich. To paraphrase our last email together, it's not all about the money, but it would make things a lot easier. I'm going to go date for a while, and in a year, if you have more money, I'll date you again. Sucks, man, because I freaking hate women right now. All I see are shallow women you can barely have a conversation with. You click on the TV and fat, old suffering dudes at perfect 10s hanging off their arms. My mom tells me, there are plenty of hot hippie chicks out there that won't care what you do or how much you make. We'll be happy being with a guy that treats her so well. Such BS. The moral of the story is, gentlemen, it doesn't matter how you treat a woman. In the end, it's about money and the fantasy she lives in her head daily. I have a lot of very good-looking friends, and they treat their women like such crap, it's unbelievable, but guess what? Girls cling on till the end. Just last week, my friend was trying to have intimacy with his ex in the bathroom while his current girlfriend was trying to get in. Did she break up with him? Heck no. Her pretty little bum comes dragging back every time. I'm in a new relationship now, and she's really cool, but I literally feel nothing for her. Not even close. Feel like Scrooge or something. Usually, after a rebound, I don't even think about an ex, but I can't shake this one. There are a lot of fish in the sea, but most of them are bottom feeders. Story 19. I don't see how people let this relationship stuff get to them. Don't get me wrong, it was about as lovey-dovey of a romantic as you could imagine in high school, and I had a decently long-term relationship as well. But since I've been in college, I've really had a hard time caring about fooling around, finding a girlfriend, or anything romantically related. I've realized how many more important aspects of life there are. OP, you've got a pretty well-paying job and you're supporting yourself very well in a rough economy. Focus on hanging out with your guy friends and enjoy your life by doing whatever the hell it is you like to do. I've got a group of guys that I've known since I was 10, and they'll mean more to me than any girl I'll ever meet. I can tell you with complete confidence that none of them will ever leave me due to any of the BS excuses I've read in this thread. This doesn't mean I want to put my thing in. It just means that I enjoy myself in their company more than any female I've ever met, including the one that I thought I'd be in love with forever and ever, have kids with, get married and all that jazz, etc. Try to listen to my advice and enjoy the bountiful pleasures of life that have nothing to do with women, and you'll see they'll come flocking to you like you never imagined possible. Of course, there's the, but she was the one, you'll never understand, only I will ever feel this way excuse. If you actually think you're the only person that's ever been smitten with a member of the opposite gender, only to get one in the back by them, then that's just hilarious because it literally happens to everyone at some point in their lives. Stop caring about it, and don't struggle against things you can't control. The most important life lesson everyone has to learn is to pick their fights carefully. Enjoy the pretty amazing life you've got right now. I would end anyone to have a $70,000 salary a few years after I graduate. There are a lot of people that would love to be in your position in life. Don't squander what you've got by fretting over some worthless woman. Story 20. I don't know why I've been dumped so much before. I'm pretty freaking awesome, to be honest. My first serious boyfriend dumped me with the words, "I don't know what love is." I later found out via mutual friends that he thought I was clingy. My second boyfriend asked me out, but broke up with me because he really only wanted me to go to prom with him. He dumped me before prom though, and then was offended that I wouldn't go with him. What an all-around idiot. Then I was dumped by a guy I wasn't even dating. He said he was going off to join the Marine Police, but he never actually joined. Finally, my last ex dumped me without really doing any of the work. He'd fallen out of love with me, and about a year before we broke up, he was content with staying with me because he didn't want to mess up our friendship, giving me false hope that anything romantic was still there. Eventually, I got sick of it, called him out on it, and it was over. Now we have no real friendship because he was too much of a wuss to be honest with me. And now I'm in a freaking amazing relationship. Going on 4 years now, with the most awesome guy and fellow Redditor who more than makes up for all those silly dudes. Going through those crappy relationships makes me appreciate how awesome and healthy my current one is. I'm so glad they dumped me. It'll get better, dude. Hugs. Story 21. I'm not obsessed with you enough. I feel like that means there's something wrong. After she was head on by a guy in a bar and flirted a bit back while intoxicated, I didn't care about the harmless flirting, but apparently that was proof that she didn't like me enough after a whopping 8 weeks to continue dating me. Meanwhile, she was in absolute tears telling me this. This was followed by, "What if I cheat on you? I was flirting. That means I might cheat on you." It sucked and hurt, but after a little while, I realized I was probably better off not being in that relationship anyway. Story 22. It was short, only 4 months, but after changing her relationship status after I asked her on a date and giving me all the signs that she actually really liked me, she dumped me the day after I drove an hour away to stay at her sister's place to stay the night and babysit her nephew. "I just don't like you enough. It was easy to get you, so I went with it." What she didn't say outright was that she wanted to be single because my friend was returning from a year overseas and she'd been besotted with him for ages. I found that fact out after she dumped me. I was a placeholder, in place just long enough to really fall for her. Story 23. A girl I knew had 2 or 3 months left in town before graduating. We started something small. She stopped because she wanted it to be more serious, under the impression that I was just using her, because what else could she start in the next 3 months? She finally agreed to think long term. She left for a week to go apartment hunting and invited me out with her. I couldn't schedule the time off. She came back, said she didn't want anything long term, and went home with a random dude at a bar a week later. The dude happened to be my good friend and neighbor who was unaware of her prior affair. He spent the night bragging about it to me before I realized we were talking about the same girl. Story 24. An old boyfriend broke up with me because I was in art school. I had too much drive and was too busy. Truth be told, I wasn't too busy, but I dedicated myself to my studio to make something of myself because I was pursuing an art degree. I went to the major at a large university rather than a typical art school because I disliked the atmosphere and money grubbing of places like Savannah or the Art Institutes. I wasn't guaranteed an internship semester at a university that hosts a job fair for the art school. To help myself, I was very active on campus and would volunteer my graphic design abilities and had a ton of commissions for money. On top of that, I had fencing practice almost every evening after class, so I scheduled my week so far in advance that I managed to see this dude every day face to face, connect via text and email in the morning, occasional lunches and in the evening. However, it still wasn't enough for him. It was incredibly selfish, and his future seemed more bleak than mine. He was an English major with no concentration, but had a pretty good research job. But he constantly made fun of me because I was an art student. I never made fun of him, but I would retort on occasion, and he would say I was acting sensitive. I tend to think he was threatened by the fact that an art major had more of a future than him because I was given temporary jobs like layout design for publications, website design, children's book creations, scientific illustration for the university museum, and medical illustration. This is the field I'll probably go into for graduate school, and I know I can make a living on this just by freelancing. In the summer, I got an amazing local graphic design internship, and I was still able to get lessons at a nearby fencing club to compete for nationals. I never tried to outdo him, nor did I say anything because I tend to never mix my work and my personal life, but he made a relationship a giant competition. It's also true that my father is paying for my education, but he started saving money for my education before I was even born. I'm super impressed by how he managed to do this while he was slowly paying off law school loans. To this day, I'm super grateful for how hard my father works, and I aspire to be just like him. I love him and my mother, who also worked side jobs to help pay for my school with all my heart. Funny enough, this ex often made me feel guilty because my father was paying for my education while he was paying student loans. However, I'm paying for my rent, electricity, food, and other spending expenses because I chose to. In order to keep it up, I took a low-wage 10-hour job with commissions. My father has to pay for 2 other siblings to go to the same, very expensive in-state university, and I didn't want to be a burden any longer on my parents. All in all, I'm used to people teasing me about being an art major, but for a boyfriend to constantly rag on me for it means good riddance. Story 25. A couple of years ago, I was quasi-dumped by my fiancé. She was growing extremely distant, and no matter what I tried to do, how many times we talked, putting more effort into spending more time together, I was working nights and switched to days, losing $400 a month premium because she said that would help. Nothing really worked. She was constantly dodging me physically, not only intimately, but no hugs, kiss on the cheek before leaving for work, cuddles, that sort of stuff, and emotionally. Talking to everyone else on Facebook at her workplace about our relationship, I was able to get free couples counseling from a benefits package at work, and she said she would try but was never able to commit to a specific date. She ultimately decided the reason was that she magically didn't love me anymore. I got tired of this act really fast, so I told her if she wasn't willing to commit to working this out, then we should break up. She seemed surprised that I would suggest that. So we split up, but we were living together. Since the place was in my name, I could have kicked her out, but trying to maintain some integrity, I knew that she would eventually find a place. So I stayed with a friend for about a month while paying the bills for her to get her stuff in order. When I came back to our old apartment, I found that everything we had bought together was gone. She even took all the toilet paper. She also went on to tell her family, who loved me, by the way, and friends, that she was scared of me and afraid to be with me. Everyone knew this was her looking for attention and a way for her to be a victim, but it still hurt that she tried so desperately to slander my character. I found out a few days later that she had dumped all of her stuff at her parents' place and then disappeared for 3 days. So her parents brought most of the furniture back to my apartment. My mother told me she was upset that we broke up, but that I was too good of a guy to have to deal with her BS. That helped a little. A few weeks later, I found out from a friend that within 3 months of our split, she had gone through 4 or 5 different guys and she was seen with guys even within 1 week of her split. I've also been dumped with a God doesn't blah 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 this relationship excuse. The last time I heard that, I totally called her out and said, "No, by God, you mean your feelings." Story 26. In my experience, young women in liberal arts programs, especially in traditionally artsy cities, are looking for someone who is similarly idealistic and less pragmatic. A close friend of mine, who was an accountant, noted that every time he would mention what he did at a party, girls would literally say, "Oh," and extricate themselves from the situation. Some types of people think you're boring and not following your dreams if you're in a stable job and trying to grow professionally. They want to hear that you're an aspiring author or musician. A few years down the line, many of them will be looking for guys like you, though, when the impetuous nature of youth cools off a bit. Story 27. I had an onstage dancing performance that involved about 20 people interchanging partners. My ex said it felt like I cheated on her and broke up with me. It was a square dancing church performance. While that was insane, it's exacerbated by the fact that at the same time she had a close male friend that she would spend hours with every day, alone, around 2 in the morning, intoxicated, holding hands for stabilization. After we broke up, she was sleeping with him a week later. We were together for a few years before that point. What I've learned from that is if someone blames you for an irrational worry, that's actually them telling you what they're doing behind your back. Story 28. I dated her for 3 months. It was a whirlwind romance. We were both in our mid-30s and pretty responsible, so I think it was surprising to both of us how strong the physical chemistry in our friendship grew. We spoke every day, sometimes for hours. One day, I told her I loved her. When she finally replied, she said she didn't feel the same way and that there was just no spark, despite the fact we only dated 3 months. This was the most devastating end to a relationship that I ever had. She never actually said anything about breaking up or dumping me, and she basically just stopped talking to me. I started drinking and used other women. I told them about her, and they all seemed to think that if I felt so passionately about her, I would eventually feel the same about them. I think it took me over a year and around 6 women to move on. I obviously still think about her from time to time. The happy ending, I met my wife in the same place I met the one that got away. Of course, no 2 relationships are the same, but my wife is the nicest, most loving person I've ever known. Also, we're expecting a baby. You have my sympathy, but be patient. Keep your standards high and just be the person you can be, and you'll find the right one for you. It won't be the same, but it will be amazing. Story 29. There was this girl I went to school with since kindergarten, and she'd started dating this guy in about 10th grade and kept dating him until about 2 years after our graduation. She was really smart and was going to school to be a doctor, and the guy was doing something artsy. I'm not quite sure what. But all in all, she ended up dumping him because he wasn't good enough for her. Of course, she didn't word it like that, but it was basically the same concept as your situation. About 6 months ago, I started seeing this girl. Things went well, except it just kept bugging me how her last relationship ended, and I was scared that I'd end up in the same fate since I'm not in college. I just work at a freaking sawmill making $20 an hour. Big whoop. She was really pretty, smart as hell, great to talk to, loved sports, and was just pretty much a perfect match for me. But my paranoia of not being good enough for her scared me off and made me end it. I kind of regret it. I wish I would have made it last as long as I could. Blah. Just thought I'd share. Story 30. My ex broke up with me through email, stating that she couldn't believe I would break her trust. What she avoided mentioning was that I found out, several days after my birthday, that she was cheating on me and was planning to get as much money out of me as possible so that she could move to New York to be with her ex, a guy that I had considered a friend, someone I was in contact with and talked to daily. Oh, and I forgot to add that I moved 3,000 miles from Indiana to Texas to be with her. The final 2 months of our relationship, she refused to talk to me. Final straw was a 3-hour car ride to go see one of her friends in which she didn't say a single word to me. Instead, she spent her time texting the guy that she left me for. So later that night, when she went to sleep, I turned her laptop on, read her instant messages to him, and found out the truth. Oh, and let me not forget to mention that she would tell him of my attempts to fix whatever was wrong, buying gifts, taking her out, writing her poems or songs, buying flowers and stuffed animals, coming to her work and buying her lunch and mock them, saying that I was pathetic. I think I covered most of the bases, except for when I got back home to Indiana, and within 2 weeks she was asking for me to come back, so we could try things again. I shot her down. I actually told her that she was confused and needed to make a decision as to what she wanted in life. She went on a tirade about how I was so immature and needed to figure out what I wanted in life and what I wanted in a girl. I think that's it. Except when she called me 8 months after that, wanting me to use pictures she took of us together for a video recapping her entire life. I let her use them, and then she linked me to the video, which I watched. After I told her that it gave me a sense of closure, she told me that she couldn't get the same closure because our relationship ended up making her hate everyone and everything. She ended up leaving that guy within a year. Yeah, that's all. Seriously now. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.